Preparation is always important, but it's more important on the one-handed backhand than any other shot, because on your forehand, if you hit the ball late, you can kind of arm it to make up for it. On the two-handed backhand, you've got the left hand that you can use to kind of compensate for what you're doing. But with the one-hander, you don't have that option. You need to be set up in the right position in time so that you can use efficient biomechanics, which is why in this video, I want to show you how you can improve your ability to prepare early, even if you've struggled with it for a long time. So I hope you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. That helps me within the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, really appreciate it if you could do that as well. So we're going to go through backhand preparation in a step-by-step manner so you understand what you need to prioritize in terms of what you're working on. The first place that we need to start is with the split step. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on it because I've made longer videos about it, and I'll place a link down in the description so you can check one of those out, but we do need to cover some fundamentals. The idea of the split step is to help us react and move in different directions more efficiently. So generally, we're thinking about having a wider base, we're thinking about lowering our center of gravity, and we're thinking about landing on the balls of the feet rather than being on the heels, because all of those three things allow us to react and push off more quickly, and they allow us to move in multiple different directions. In terms of the timing of the split step, we want to be landing from the split step just after our opponent makes contact. So they've made contact with the ball is traveling off. It's just after they've made contact that we're landing. So now as we lower, we use the elastic, or we store elastic in our muscles. So we store elastic in these muscles, and then hopefully we can see where the ball's going, and then we can move off quickly and start to prepare for our shot. So the first part of the backhand or one-handed backhand preparation is going to be that split step. So if you're not doing a split step, that's something that you need to work on. You've got to focus on the timing, and then you've got to make sure you've got the athleticism to be able to have a good quality split step that's going to help you to react more quickly. After you land from the split step, the next part of the physical preparation is twofold. We've got the unit turn, which is your upper body rotating, your racket is going with it, so we're turning as a unit. And as you do that unit turn, you're changing from your forehand grip to your backhand grip. You've also got some kind of pivot step with your left leg as a right-handed player, and the way that you pivot is going to vary dependent on what type of ball you're receiving, because where you're going to move to affects this pivot step. We're going to talk about the specifics of that in a moment, because there's something that comes before both of those things, and this is really important because this is actually the thing that prevents most players from being prepared early. So in between landing from your split step and doing the unit turn and pivot step, we've got something that's really important, and that is your ability to read where the ball's going, your ability to predict where the ball's going so that you can do the appropriate unit turn and pivot step. Now, it tends to be a little bit easier to figure out whether it's going to your forehand or whether it's going to your backhand, but where people tend to have more problems is reading the depth of the ball. Is it going to drop short? Is it going to go to the middle of the court? Is it going to go deep? And this is why you see players, they know they're supposed to prepare early, but their opponents hit the ball, they know it's coming to the backhand, and they wait until the last minute, and then they start to take the racket back because they weren't able to predict where the ball was going soon enough. So if you want to prepare earlier on your one-hander, this is something you're probably going to have to address. Now, the way you address it is twofold. There's kind of an off-court and an on-court part. The off-court is about training your visual system, because you have to really accurately be able to judge the speed the ball is traveling at, the distance, you have to be able to read the spin and what those things are doing. And that's hard. So you want to start to train your visual system. This is something that can take a little bit of time, but I've created a free program to help you get started. I'll place a link in the description, and I'll place a link up there so you can check that out. And then the second part of it is going to be work done on the court. And what this involves is basically drilling or rallying, so you can have someone feed you a ball, or you can just do it in a live rally, and then you're going to practice the skill of judging whether it's going short, middle, or deep. So as soon as your opponent makes contact, all of your focus is on calling out, is the ball going to land short? Is it going to go to the middle of the court? Is it going to go deep? That might sound like overkill, but this is the process that's involved. You've got to raise how your visual system's functioning, and then you've got to incorporate that and train yourself to now use those new visual skills to learn how to read the ball. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about some of the specifics of the unit turn and of the pivot step. The unit turn is a little bit more simple. We've got the upper body rotating, we're changing the grip. generally the racket is going to go high, and the way that a lot of players do it nowadays is the left elbow is going to be high and pulling the racket up. Some players have a bent arm, some players have a straight arm. That stuff is a little bit less important. What is important is that you get your body rotated, because we're going to be using our body as part of our efficient biomechanics when we're hitting the ball. When it comes to the pivot step, this is where we've got a few more options. And basically, we're going to be pointing our foot roughly in the direction that we're moving in. So if I'm moving directly for a wide ball, I'm going to be doing a pivot step where my foot is pointing in that direction, my pelvis is pointing in that direction, so then I can move in that direction. If I'm dealing with a short ball, my pivot step is going to be a little bit different. Now my foot is pointing in that direction because I need to start moving in that direction. If I'm dealing with a deep ball, now my pivot step is going to be a little bit different again. I'm going to be opening up, so my pelvis has got to open up, so then I can move back in that direction. So we're roughly going to be pointing the foot in the direction that we're moving. Now we've got to consider what we're doing with the heel and what we're doing with the toe. So if I'm trying to cover a lot of ground, I'm going to be landing on the ball of my foot. So I'm going to be landing more on the toe. So if you look, my heel is raised, I'm on the ball of my foot, my shin is pointing that way, and this is going to allow me to push off and cover a lot of ground. So this is a drop step because I'm dropping that foot under my pelvis, so now I can push off. It's going to be very similar if I'm moving forwards. I'll still be landing on the ball of the foot. I'll still have this shin angle. Now it won't be pointing like that because I'm moving forwards, so it'll be more there, so then I can push forwards. If I move into the deep ball, I'll be opening up and then dropping under. So if you're my deep ball, I'll be opening up and then it's going to drop under, so I can move back and start to get in position there. Where things are going to look a little bit different is if I'm dealing with a really hard deep ball and I don't necessarily need to move it because it's coming more straight to me. Now, instead of landing on the ball of the foot, I'm potentially going to be landing on the heel because I'm just going to be loading off that leg to then step in and hit the ball, or maybe I've got to hit from an open stance. But we've got all those considerations with this pivot step. Do I need to move forwards? Do I need to move back? What exactly am I going to be doing next? And that's why your ability to read the ball is going to be so important, because unless you can read where the ball's going, it's really hard to do the appropriate pivot step. So I just want to skip ahead a little bit and talk about something that's going to be important for the way you hit the ball. Now, we can hit one-handed backhands from an open stance. It's going to be important on the return of serve and maybe on some really deep balls, but a lot of the time, most of the time, you're going to be stepping into either a neutral stance or a closed stance. And for all of the neutral and closed stance backhands, you're basically going to be loading off your outside leg. As you load off your outside leg, you're going to do the final part of your unit turn. Now, depending how flexible you are and what your timing's like, this might look different. If you've got great timing and you're really flexible, potentially you'll rotate further and they'll be able to see you back. If you're less flexible and your timing's not as good, maybe you'll just be more side on and it'll be a little bit easier. But you're going to get that final unit turn and you're going to load and be balanced off this outside leg, so then you can step into the ball. So what's going to be really important in terms of our preparation is kind of how we load at the last minute, how we load onto this left leg and finalize that unit turn. Now this is going to look a little bit different. If we're moving forwards, we'll be moving forwards as we load off this leg. If we're moving to the side, we'll be loading off. If we're going backwards, it looks slightly different again for all of the shots, but what generally happens is you're lowering your center of gravity as you bend the leg to kind of get a stable base to then drive into the ball. But what I want to do is show you a few different footwork patterns that you can start to program and you can start to practice. Because just like we need to kind of get the visual system functioning at a certain level, you need to basically take the footwork out of the equation. You need to have practiced your footwork over and over again so that your brain understands how to do different footwork patterns so they become habitual. And then when your brain recognizes where the ball's going, you can just do the appropriate footwork. If you've never worked on your footwork separately, you won't magically be able to do it perfectly when the ball's coming. So I want to show you some different combinations to work on. So we won't be able to cover everything, but I do want to show you a few different footwork combinations. The first one that we're going to do, you're going to land from your split step, you're going to do a unit turn and a pivot step, and then you're just going to step in to a neutral stance. So when you're practicing this, you just do it as part of your warm-up or at home, and you just literally practice what does it feel like to kind of load on that leg as I get that unit turn. So now I can transfer that and I can use it in terms of biomechanics. So you just literally rep it out. The next one that I want to show you, we're going to do a shuffle step in to a neutral stance. So instead of just doing that, now you're just getting used to the balance of doing that. And yes, it seems a little bit artificial, but by doing this over and over again, your brain will just start to turn them into fluid motions. The next variation can be a crossover step into a neutral stance. And again, the key thing that you're working on is what does it feel like to load that outside leg. So yes, the split step, the drop step, loading this outside leg, and then stepping in. And then one final one, we're going to do a crossover step, a shuffle step, and then the neutral stance. So crossover step, shuffle step, and then the neutral stance. Now, will that ever happen just like that in a match? Maybe, maybe not. But this is training your brain, training your body in a certain way. So crossover step, shuffle step, getting that loading, and step. And just get used to these movements. What's it like from there? Want to show you a couple more combinations, this time moving forwards. So now I'm going to load off that leg and then do a shuffle step and come forwards. Load off that leg, shuffle step and come forwards. Load, shuffle step, come forwards. We're then going to turn that into a crossover step. And then we're going to add a shuffle step afterwards. So again, does it happen exactly like this? Or would you instead just move more on a diagonal to make that happen? Maybe, maybe not. The important thing is that you're just programming these different variations, teaching your brain about these different options. The final one that I want to show you is going to be more for a deep ball. So this one is just going to be the drop step. And this time we will just go straight into the crossover. So there's crossover and then potentially just step back in. So just get a feel for what it's like to load on that back leg and then step back in. Or maybe you need to load on that back leg and then take a shuffle step to adjust. And that might seem like overkill. It might seem like a lot. It might seem like hard work. But I promise you, if you put the effort in and spend time doing this, it is going to make a massive, massive difference, especially if you also start to work on your visual system. Because really, all this stuff blends together. The key thing to understand is if you have never practiced any of this stuff without the ball, it doesn't suddenly happen when the ball's there. If your visual system doesn't function at a high enough level, you don't suddenly develop amazing visual capabilities when you step out on a tennis court. You've got to spend the time off the court and working on the footwork and working on all these individual parts. And then when you start to do it on court, that's when you're going to start to see the results that you want. And this is just the way that learning takes place. So hopefully you found this video helpful. I'll just remind you about those resources. We've got the free Tennis Vision Starter Program. I'll place in the link in the description. I'll place a link up there so you can check that out. If you are interested in improving your timing, I've got this video here, which is going to go into a lot more detail and show you some different assessments that you can work on. So I highly advise you check that out. Otherwise, if you've got any questions about what we talked about today, I'd love to hear them and I will get back to you as quick as I can.